Okay, guys, I'm swapping over to Saturday today for the live. So I'm just going to do a warm up and get some people on, ask some questions. So I haven't really done any training today. I've done some coaching this morning. So I'll just do a general warm up and then whoever comes on, ask the questions and we'll go from there. So I'm going to do a bit of everything. I'm not training anything specific today. I want to do a little bit of planche, a little bit of handstand push-ups, just because I haven't done any of those properly for a day or two. If you jump on, ask any questions. Who's going to start off with the questions? What are you guys training towards? Any blocks? Thank you. Appreciate it. Let me know any questions, guys. What are you guys training towards? Handstand push-ups, presses, handstand balance, planche. How many days did it take me to learn a handstand? I recently put a video up showing my timeline. So when I started, I was 37 when I started training consistently and started training towards a one-arm handstand. I had around an 8-second handstand, like wobbly, legs apart and stuff. And then it took about 2 to 3 months of daily practice to get a 60-second handstand. So around 2 to 3 months to get like a solid-ish handstand that then I started to build upon. What mobility after handstand practice do you do? So I'll tend to do with handstand practice, I tend to do a general mobility practice on a daily basis. So I'll be doing forward fold type movements every day, whether I'm training or not. So increasing that just makes it so much easier to shift the weight across into your hands and shoulders. So getting deep in your forward fold position, doing something to open the hips up. So your normal couch stretch, quad, hip flexor opening, and then the big one, overhead mobility. So thoracic roller. So this type of thing every day for most people, especially if you're a little bit older like I was when I started. I was just super tight in my upper back. So doing this on a daily basis plus hanging will just transform your overhead position, because most people, you can test it. You can try and hold into like a strong posterior tilt there and then see what it's like to take your hands above your head. Most people will arch through the back when they're trying to take their hands above their head. So overhead mobility, quads, hip flexors, forward fold position would be a daily. And then going into like middle splits, opening the hips up towards straddle pancake for your presses, one-arm handstands and stuff like that. You want to know how to raise the legs for the handstand. So if you mean press handstand, it's all about shifting, getting to the point where you can put your hip on top of your hands. So think of the hip crease here. So this part of my hip needs to be on top of my hands. If I'm here, I can't lift my feet up. But watch what happens to this part. As soon as I shift across enough, my hip gets on top of my hands and then my feet become light. So now I'm there shifted, and then look, I can go up to handstand. But that having that position where the hip gets on top of the hands and then you've got the strength in your upper back and shoulders to hold you in position, that's how you make your toes float. So there's mobility, there's strength, there's conditioning of that position, but that's how you get up from there. In terms of, do I provide coaching with step-by-step? So I do two sorts of coaching. I've got my app. There's a link in the description for that, which goes through all my programming, and I'm adding to that on a weekly basis. So there's lots of tutorials, follow-along videos, and programs in there, or I offer online coaching, which is step-by-step. And that's individualized to the person. So I do program design and coaching. That's on my website. Link again is in the description. I have a problem while kicking up to handstand. I can't stack my hips over the shoulder. So that there's a lot of things that could be the issue there. So one of the things I would make sure you do when you do your kick ups is create a very, very strong base that's very consistent. So I need to place my hands on the floor, my shoulders directly on top of my hands, my focal point. So I'm looking down. So that creates a very strong base. So I'm there, and then I just kick up and try and get my hip to go on top of the shoulders. What you don't want to do is when you kick up is try and take the shoulder underneath the hip. So I'm trying to get the hip to land on top of the shoulders in that position. Then it doesn't matter what I do with the legs. I can push straight, I can keep it all bendy, but basically having that strong base that pulls the rest of the body around. Now to do that freestanding, you need to create the strong window of balance, which is what we learn up against the wall when I pull from the wall with fingers back to wall. So I'm training my overbalance there. But notice the shoulders, the focal point all stays the same. If I turn it around this way and do the underbalance, exactly the same. So take the shoulders forwards, toes slide off the wall, and then I push up to my handstand, but I've got that strong base the same. So training that entry with the strong base, the back to wall, the chest to wall, will increase your window of balance and your consistency of kick up. Is it necessary to lose weight? And one should be strong. Like obviously, the stronger you are compared to your body weight, the easier it's going to be. So your lean body mass is going to make a massive difference. So if you're carrying excess weight, things are going to be harder, and the more weight you lose and the stronger you become, the easier it is. That's just the same with all the body weight exercises. The cool thing is, though, as your strength increases and your weight decreases and your flexibility increases, everything just gets easier and easier and easier. So if you start a little bit heavier and not so strong, not so flexible, you have 3 ways to make things easier. So think about it as you're going downhill in terms of everything getting easier as opposed to things getting harder. Like if you start leaner and then put on weight, you're making it much, much harder for yourself. So you're actually in a good place if you need to lose weight, because as you lose the weight, you'll get stronger and your condition will get better and your gains will just go through the roof. You just have to give your body a bit of time to get used to it and go in at the right level for you. I think you have major core strength issues, I think I have major core strength issues, as I've been trying to get to handstand for a year now. I'm 52 this year and desperate to have a handstand sorted this year. Yeah, so you just need to assess everything. So I would be assessing 3 different things. So you want to be your conditioning in the position, so like a chest to wall handstand position, to check whether you can hold this. So most people aren't lacking in core, it's just not doing enough conditioning work. So get to the point where you can hold this for 45, 60 seconds with control. So it's not this, it's holding in that position. Now, if you can't even get into that position, if that feels impossible, then you can start with floor drills. So positions like this, just keeping the load back on the floor. But once you're doing that, I'd also do the ones up against the wall, and then practicing your kick up, what I just demonstrated before with the pulling off the wall back to wall for the overbalance, and then the chest to wall toe pull version. So as long as you're doing those consistently enough, like 3 or 4 times a week, everything should get easier. I haven't seen anyone not get better at handstand if they put the work in. So it's just the consistency that's the tricky part. I have a crippling banana handstand. I can hold for about 30 seconds. Any tips? So you just want to 2 things. You want to increase your mobility which obviously makes sense, but also just training yourself in a taller, straighter position. So if you've got to a 30-second handstand, you've created habits in that position. So you might be looking down towards the floor and opening the chest up, which creates a stronger position, so like a stronger foundation. So if I'm in a handstand here and I've taught myself to handstand like this, I'm always going to be in a banana position, because if I try and straighten it, I'm going to fall out of position. So it could be that you've taught yourself to hold that position, but the other thing is we need to do is take that position, if it's mobility, and straighten it into that position. So the easiest way to do that is to hang every day. So if I jump up and hang, so now I just hold this for 30, 60 seconds every day before I do my handstand practice, then it's going to teach my body to start to open up. I could also do that chest to wall handstand. If I can't hold the handstand for 20, 30 seconds, I can do my chest to wall handstand and just get conditioning in a straighter position where balance isn't taken over. If I've got the skill of holding a banana-like position, I've got the bad habit of doing that, I might need to go back to the wall, take away the balance aspect, and work on the condition of holding a straighter line. So doing those two at once and slowly increasing the mobility, straightening the line. Don't think you're going to go from a big banana handstand to a straight handstand in a day. Give it time and just slowly chip away at it. For the one-arm handstand, do you recommend to look at the hand you want to stand on? Yes, definitely. So I went back and had to relearn basically the one-arm handstand with that new focal position. So when I initially learned, I was looking in the middle. So when I'm doing a one-arm handstand, I was looking in the middle here. So even when I was up on canes and things, I'm still looking all the way through to the floor. And then when I went back to improve my handstand, I started moving my eyesight over. So now if I do a one-arm handstand, I'm going to look at my right hand. So I'm looking between my thumb and my index finger there to hold that position. So see where I'm looking straight down there. So definitely learn that from the start. And I'd add that in early on. So as you're starting to shift your body across and down and start to flag over, you're also starting to get on top of the working arm, looking down, straight down towards here. Do I train fasted or do I have a workout meal? Oh, and I've lost where I was. Do you do fasted training or with a good pre-workout meal? It all depends. My training is based around when I have my gaps. Like now I haven't eaten since lunch and it's now 5 p.m. So I haven't eaten for about 3 hours. And then I'll eat after I've trained now. It all depends on my day. So I don't train. I don't tend to have food like an hour before I train. But juggling coaching the kids and just life, I just fit my training in when I can. Hey, John. Hey, Paul, did uneven handstand today, one hand on a raised block, most weight on floor hand. I noticed I kicked up into a balance a lot easier than even hands, at least on my dominant side. Any reason? No, I don't know what that would be. It could be a mobility thing. It could be a dominant side has just taken over and just creates. So it depends what you had your hand on as well, because it could be that if you've got something to grab hold of, you can pull yourself around a little bit. So if I'm holding onto this with one hand and one hand on the floor, I can now hold this and pull this around a little bit. So even though I've got more weight, say in this hand, I'm holding this and I can pull myself around. So in a lot of ways, it's easier to handstand on blocks because of the same thing. You're holding onto something, you can pull yourself around, or P-bars, same thing. You can just use your strength to pull yourself around. So it could be that, or you just create a little bit more space with the setup, which demands less mobility, which then makes the handstand easier. So a lot of people, when they handstand, they actually handstand too close for their mobility. So their elbows are popping out like this. They can't actually get into this straight position. So just widening the hands or giving themselves an out by turning the hands into this position instead of trying to be fully in that position just creates more space. So it could be that. For how long have you been doing this and what's your age? So I'm 47, nearly 48. I started this style of training at 37. So coming up to 11 years, I've been doing this. I've always done training though. So I've always done like weight training before that, a little bit of CrossFit. Then before that, just general weights. So bench press, lat pull downs, that type of stuff. Chest and tries, back and biceps from a very early age. Is there a good program to increase my reps? I have been stuck at 7 pull-ups for about a year. Can you share a program for increasing my repetitions? I would work on mobility, chin-ups, weighted pull-ups. So basically try and shock the body. If you've been doing that for a long time, you just need to change it around a little bit. And also I would be training like scapular mobility and hanging on a bar. Pull-ups a lot of the time, especially if you're trying to pull very high, is about mobility, like trying to get your chest towards the bar. If you're stuck in this position when you pull up, is really hard and you're fighting yourself. So if you can open up your pecs and your lats, so it makes it easier to get into this position. Train for things like muscle ups and stuff, where you do a slower muscle up where you pull through the bar. You'll find that you then, when you try and do a standard chin up, it's much easier because you're not fighting yourself from a mobility point of view. And then like weighted chin ups, doing archer chin ups. So changing the intensity by making it slightly harder, reducing the repetitions. So basically just shocking your body. And I would stick, if you want to just get strong as well, I'd stick with a 5x5 with most things. So if you can do 7, then you can do 5 of a weight. Any tips for reducing stiffness in forearms post handstand practice? I'm a guitarist, and even though my forearms look sexy, they feel stiff. So it's tricky, especially if you do that a lot during the day. So if you're holding a flex position and then suddenly you're having to go all the way and do your training in that position, and then you go back to your flexion again. A lot of people that work on desks and stuff are exactly the same. So they do this all day long, and then suddenly they turn their hands and do it the other way. I would work on mobility throughout the body. So definitely upper back mobility. It sounds funny, but that just creates more space down the line. Even creating more mobility in your hips can free up down the line. Your wrists and your forearms take all the stress from the rest of the body's mobility when you're in a handstand. It's like getting painful ankles and feet from having tight hips when you're standing. So if you loosen your hips up, your ankles get a release and it's much easier. The other thing you can do is start to play around with using some blocks when you do handstands as well, because it just makes it easier from a mobility point of view. And just look at the conditioning or how you're doing your handstand practice. So a lot of people will do longer sessions less frequently. So they might do 2 sessions a week, but they're 90 minutes long with their handstands, where ideally I would do 20 to 30-minute handstand sessions, but 5 or 6 of them per week. So I think that's much better on the body and on your progress by shorter, more frequent sessions than longer, less frequent. Hi there, I plateaued a bit recently with my wall-assisted handstand push-up. How many times do you recommend training for a handstand push-up? And how many exercises per week should be dedicated to that skill? It depends on the individual. If the handstand push-up is a main goal of yours, I'd actually be doing something towards the handstand push-up nearly every day, which sounds a lot, but I just mean that I wouldn't be doing super intense sessions. So you've first got to assess whether you're strong enough in your overhead position and where your gaps are. So the easiest way to assess the handstand push-up is to look at the eccentric and what control you have in it. Can you come down really slowly? So if I look at, like if I take it to an extreme and do an eccentric handstand push-up, if I kick into the position, this is going to demonstrate, do I have the balance for the top of the handstand or the top of the handstand push-up? And then if I come down through the pathway, so number one now, do I understand the pathway? Is my head and shoulders coming forwards and my feet coming backwards? Can I come really slowly through that eccentric? And now can I hold at the bottom? And then can I come back out with control? So that shows me that I don't have any gaps in my handstand push-up. If I fell through that position, if I lost balance, that would tell me I need to work on the balance aspect. If I need to work on the balance aspect, am I strong enough? If I'm not strong enough, I need to go against the wall and do repetitions on an easier variation where I'm getting around 5 repetitions for 5 sets. That would be the goal. If you can't get 5 repetitions of the wall handstand push-ups, we might need to go 2 repetitions of handstand push-ups plus 3 repetitions of pike push-ups, so an easier variation. So trying to work out where your gaps are in the movement, but also like assess the position. So when you do the pathway, you need to check that you're in the most efficient position, because if you're not in a efficient position, then everything's going to be way harder. Handstand push-ups is one of those things that a lot of people do against the wall, and they'll drag their body down the wall, which makes it 100 times 100 times harder. So if I do a handstand push-up freestanding, I can do, I don't know, 10 reps pretty comfortably here. But if I do it against the wall and I drag my body down the wall, because most people will do this, have too much weight against the wall, so they're actually doing this. And then when they come back up, it's like this. And now they're arching and pulling themselves back out. So that is so much harder than doing one freestanding. So that's what I mean by assessing your position and not just thinking, I can do only 2 repetitions, I'm not strong enough. You might be strong enough for 5 repetitions if your body's in the right place. So you really need to do the assessment, and eccentrics is a really good way of assessing either freestanding or against the wall to see where your gaps are. I've lost where I was now. I will join your online class soon. Awesome. Hope your channel gets bigger soon with all the content you're putting out there, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I like, now I'm working from home majority of the week. So I only really see clients 1 day a week in person now. I have a lot more time for my online. So that's the goal. And the best way I'm doing that at the moment is creating content for YouTube, and then building my app and coaching my online clients. So that's really cool now that I can do that like 99% of the time, week in, week out, and I'm really enjoying it as well. And I love the YouTube. I'm a big fan of the video editing and the videography side of it as well. What will get in 159 RS per month in Indian rupees? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I always underbalance my handstands. Can I save underbalance without planching? Yeah, well, the only way you can save underbalance is taking something in front of the hands. If you're underbalanced, it means you're falling backwards. So, or not backwards, you're falling forwards, if you like. Depends what you call forwards or backwards. But basically, it means that I'm here on this side, and look, I can't stay there. The only way I can stay there is if I take my shoulders forwards, and then I can pull myself up. Now, it doesn't have to be much. So is that planching, or is that just leaning forwards with the shoulder? Like, that's definitely planching the shoulders now. The other way of doing it instead of planching is to bend the arms slightly. So now I've caught my underbalance, so I'm not coming down because I've taken my head down and forward slightly. So you need to take something that way if your feet are falling this way. It's just physics. Like, you're going to fall that way if something's sticking out in that direction, unless there's something in the opposite direction. So the only way of really doing it is to bend the arms or take the shoulders forwards a little bit. It depends what you call planching. You shouldn't need to be that. In a normal handstand balance, it shouldn't be really visible that you've moved the shoulders. It might literally just be that. So the feet have come this way, and then your shoulders are hooked in that. So it should be very subtle in a handstand balance. In a handstand push-up or a press or a planche press type position, then the shoulders will definitely go much further forwards. Also, I have shoulder pain when I go down in weighted dips. Any solution? In weighted dips, I wouldn't train weighted dips then. It just means that you're stressing your body too much in that position. I would do other dip variations and progress your dips, handstand push-ups, bent arm pushing strength without adding excess weight. especially if it's only in weighted dips. Like I stopped, I hurt my shoulder a little while ago, or just wound the tendons up too much by going to weighted handstand push-ups, and I didn't need to. Like I'm more than happy with my strength for my handstand push-ups. There was no reason to increase weight. I just saw lots of people on Instagram and social media doing weighted handstand push-ups, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. That looks like fun. And added load to it, but for no reason. Like I'm not interested in making my handstand push-ups any stronger, and especially by adding weight. So it was pointless. That's what I would do is if you get in pain, stop doing it, and do normal dips. If you still get pain, then obviously you need to try and work out what that is. And if you've got pain in the body, you really need to see someone in person to diagnose that and work out where the pain's coming from. But until then, I would work around it. So going wider with the hands, externally rotating, look at your position, make sure you're leaning forwards enough, make sure your mobility is there. L sit to bent arm tuck planche, doing it to advance to L to handstand. How do I get into more of an inverted position like the handstand rather than just horizontal? I would practice L sit to shoulder stand, which is basically a bent arm planche but up in the air. So that one, so go from L sit there through to a bent arm position and then back again. So that would get you used to being inverted in that position. If you're new to that and worried about going over, I would just start in a very tucked shoulder stand position, or if you call this a bent arm planche, like a tucked bent arm planche, and then from there transition through to L sit and back again. So it's just learning to get the hips and the shoulders to move like a seesaw. So when the shoulders come down, the hips come up, the hips come down, the shoulders come up, and vice versa. That's a great exercise for that. And then if you're happy to use a bit more momentum, you could go through into handstand. Obviously, it's harder on those higher P bars. Just have low P bars or go between chairs, or like I use these steps a lot. They're cool for that. But also look at the crow to handstand. If you look at crow to handstand, that's actually the same movement in terms of you're in the bent arm planche position. So if I went like that, there's the bent arm planche. There's my crow or frog. And then from there, I could practice going inverted to handstand. So you start playing with L sit to shoulder stand, crow to handstand, and then suddenly you've got bent arm press to handstand. So just fill gaps like that. And if you struggle with any of those movements, do the down. Start in the handstand, come down to the crow. Start in the shoulder stand, come through to the L sit. Okay. Do you have any strategies for muscle-mind connection? A lot of the times, like I'll see people get stuck with movements because mentally they don't believe they can do it, or they're subconsciously worried about a movement. That's really common. So you just have to find different ways of attacking the skill, and know when to change your movements as well. So the one arm handstands are really interesting one, where if you're not feeling it on a certain day, I wouldn't train it. I'd skip it and do strength. And some days you're better off doing strength instead of balance, and some days you're better off doing balance instead of strength. So I would like go on how you're feeling and how your body is reacting to the session that you're going to do, and have the ability to swap sessions out and around as needed. And then just it all depends on what your goal is and if you're finding blocks, or whether you're finding things that are working really well for you and just sort of riding the edge of that. It depends on like in what way you're talking about. Where are we? Is there a drill for underbalance with back, face, and wall? I'm a little bit afraid of falling. Is there any way to practice falling if there's a drill? Yeah. So the back to wall version I use when people are worried about back splatting. We do the chest to wall version. Ideally, you'll have someone there and stop you from falling on the chest to wall version. But if you don't have anyone, yes, you can practice exiting out. It's hard to practice falling because you're not actually falling, you're practicing exiting. Like it's too controlled. When you fall, you fall. I've never seen anyone splat on their back. Everyone turns out in some way. So, but it's just mentally getting that across. You just ideally want to find a wall where there's grass or whether there's, definitely don't do it where there's bars and stuff around. Just make sure there's an exit. If not, doing it back to wall, you can do it. But you just got to think that once you pass the handstand, you've got to be able to pull back to the wall again. So you just got to go past the handstand towards your underbalance. So if I do it really slow, it will make sense, but it's very hard to do it. So I come past my handstand, and then as I come past my handstand, see my shoulders have started to come forwards. So now I'm training my underbalance because my feet have gone too far, and I can pull back again. So you can purposely do that, go past the handstand and try and pull back. But most people will end up doing this too early, so it gets a bit crazy. You can do it like this and then try and pull yourself back to feel the underbalance. But it's much trickier because you don't know, you normally do it too early or too late and you end up falling. But that you can, on paper, do that, but it's just tricky to get it right. But it's a good one to play with until you do build up the confidence to do it chest to wall. I can do a kick up and get into handstand, by the way, but I don't think I have a big balance window. Yeah, that's fine. And just if you do like back to wall drills, slowly increasing your balance window, combined with some freestanding play on the grass, on sand, wherever you feel comfortable, and then over time, put in the chest to wall handstand balance. So then you have back to wall, chest to wall, and then play with the balance work as well, and slowly increase the freestanding, decrease in the wall drills, but always do like a combination of both until you've got like a comfortable 20, 30 second freestanding that's consistent. Is a way for me to hold for more than time. I can kick up and hold handstand for 10 seconds. So yeah, I would still go chest to wall for your conditioning holds. So even if you're like that against the wall, I would do that. Even put your feet up on a box or on the chair or something and just be in like a piked position and just hold there for time and build that up till you're up to 30, 40, 60 seconds in that position. Yeah, learning to fall is like you've just got to play with in a wherever you're comfortable. So grass, sand, like a gymnastic floor. Just find somewhere you're comfortable and playing with it. Spend more time on your hands. Play with crows. Play with low arm balances just to build the confidence, and then it'll slowly get better and better. Hi Paul, I recently started on my handstand journey. I'm just using the wall for now and trying to get away from it. I'm also starting at the same time on presses as my strength is my strongest point now. Yeah, perfect. So a good way of learning to balance the handstand is start working on handstand push-ups and presses at the same time because you'll slowly build more options. The more options you have, the better. Like I started off and my mobility was terrible, but my strength was pretty good. I could sort of hold in a crow position with my my knees off my elbows. Okay, great advice. Hey Paul, how do you reduce blood pressure in the head? Handstands some days are worse than others. Why is this? What's your experience over the years? Could it be related to nutrition too? I would say it's probably just conditioning. So most people, you can always tell new people in my handstand class because their faces are all red from just not being used to being upside down. So what I would do is instead of going upside down once a week, I would go upside down every day, but just go upside down for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, however long it is that you feel comfortable with on a daily basis. And it could just be sticking your foot up on a chair. So literally doing that, obviously make sure your wrists are happy, but stick your foot up on a chair in that position, hold there, 10 seconds, come back down. I just do that every day. and then slowly increase it. Obviously, if you're doing a handstand class a week or one handstand session a week where you're doing more, then do that as well. But on top of that, do the regular practice and your body will just slowly get used to it. Also, just check mobility. So if there's a lack of mobility to go overhead, like if this is really intense for you, so some people are like this and it's really, really hard, then you're going to feel more and more stress on the body, and you're more likely to feel the blood pressure rise just because you're making it very intense. So overhead mobility will make a massive difference. So hanging and that thoracic opening. Could I learn handstand just focus on presses? Technically you could, but the trouble is with presses that you need to be in a handstand for a lot of the exercises. So if you're only practicing the bottom up, the only time you're going to be able to practice the top of the handstand is once you're in a handstand. And if you can't do a handstand, you can't practice the top of the handstand. I have had a couple of people in my handstand classes that I've seen press handstand that couldn't hold a handstand. So they just had the ability. They were very, very flexible, and they could literally put their hands on the floor and have their hips stacked directly above their body, and then they could just lift their legs up in the air, and then it just fell over when they got there. So I would do both. I would work your handstand balance, the wall drills, and the presses at the same time, and then they'll just meet each other at some point. Just started, and now I can headstand without support. That's awesome. Yeah, fantastic. And just enjoy the journey. Like just go to the next movement and then start open and closing the legs in the headstand position, add in the chest or handstand positions, and then it just keeps becoming, opens more and more options up. I progressed really fast with the one-arm handstand at first, making up to 5-second holds on my finger, but going from one finger to one arm feels like it's such a massive jump. How do you feel in the gap? So that's just thousands of repetitions. It's actually quite quick for most people to get to fingertips, but the trouble is with fingertips is that you tend to go to, like you might get to fingertips, but it's still got loads of weight in it. Ideally, when you go up onto fingertips, there's no weight in this hand. There's still no weight in this hand. Now I go up onto fingers, there's still no weight in it. There's still no weight in it. And then I can start to take the finger away. There's still no weight. In reality, when you pull up, you've got loads of weight in the fingers. So decreasing weight out of the fingers, going from one finger to no fingers is probably 6 to 12 months for most people once you get to one finger. And that's of daily practice. So you'll get a few like glimpses of it where you get a balance for a second or two and you'll think you're nearly there. But it literally is 18 months, 2 years of daily practice to start to get anything for most people that's a one-arm handstand. So that's just the reality of one-arm handstand training. If not, everyone would be doing it. Can't do handstand right now, so thinking of shoulder press progressions so I can lift myself from headstand and then control. Yeah, that's like I had very good bent arm strength when I started my handstands. It definitely made it easier, and it meant that my handstand when I first started wasn't a bent arm. Like it looks like this. My arms are really wide apart, and I was holding with my strength. You just got to go with what your strengths are, and head towards your goals in the direction or in the pathway that suits you and what you enjoy as well. So, I could give you a program that's perfect for you to take you towards the handstand, but if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do the work. So one that's not perfect for you might be the best program for you because it's something you enjoy training. What would be great sets and reps for handstand push-ups on the wall for someone that can't do bent arm presses? I'd start off with trying to work out, make it simple and just go for like a 3x5 to start with. So 3 reps of 5 sets, whether that's pike push-ups, handstand push-ups. I would check first that you've got like really good, strong dips. So push-ups first, then dips, then pike push-ups, and then handstand push-ups. And if needed, adding in some overhead pressing of some sort, whether it's barbell or dumbbell. But most people can get away with having strong dips. So it depends on where you're at. Like a 5x5 of dips should be pretty comfortable before you start heading into handstand push-ups with any amount of volume. Do you have a video in which you explain how your app works and what is part of the program and what your part of the coaching looks like? Yes, I've got. There's one I done about a month ago for my app. If you just look through my recent videos, you'll probably have to scan back a little bit, like maybe, I don't know, 14 videos back maybe. You'll have my app will be there, or just search my name and app. It should come up. If it doesn't, just send me a message and I'll send you the link. Are you able to do a handstand push-up straight up and down, not forward leaning? No, it's really impossible to do that because you need to take your head forwards. Going straight up and down is not the best position. You'll see people do it in CrossFit and stuff, but that's when they're up against the wall to push straight up. Like pushing here, look at this position. Look how uncomfortable I am here. This is where I'd be. So this is where you are for a barbell press. This is where you are for a dumbbell press in that position. So to take the head forwards of the hands. So if I do a handstand push-up now, so I can't go straight down now because I would fall over. Like there's nowhere for me to go. But if I go here, the same as a dumbbell press or a barbell press there, and then back up, see the shoulders go back on top again. So that has to happen for a handstand push-up to go into that triangle position. So you're much stronger there. So I wouldn't be trying to go straight up and down. Also, I can do a handstand push-up fairly well on powerlets, but it's much harder on the floor. How do I get it more consistent on floor? So I would keep doing them on powerlets, but then do like eccentrics on the floor, handstand balance on the floor. So combine both of them. So you don't just drop the powerlets, but I would start doing whatever you can do on the floor and just try and increase your balance. Eccentrics is probably the best way to do it. So go up and down on the powerlets and then do slow down on the floor, just so you get used to that balance position. But in terms of the pathway, it should be roughly the same. But that's very common that people will have one that they're much stronger in. Hey, Richard. Hope the sun's shining in the UK. Hi, Paul. I'm struggling with overbalance. Please suggest some drills. So if you're struggling with overbalance, the most common thing is that you're too stacked in the handstand, that you're basically over the top already. So if your handstand base is here, you're putting your shoulders and your hips right over the top, which means that you'll be, it's like standing like this. So you're probably handstanding like this. So I'm constantly in this position. It's actually much better to be here. We've got way more room for error in this slight underbalanced position. So number one, I would try that. So try and video yourself from the side, see where your hips are relative to your hands and your shoulders. They should be slightly underbalanced. If they're slightly overbalanced, we need to try and correct that position. One way to do it, so to increase the overbalance control, I'm here and I push up and through the fingers, and then I can get to my handstand, and then I can go back to that position nice and slowly, and I can do repetitions of that. So that is going to strengthen my overbalance control. But when I'm in the handstand, I want to try and practice being more here, so my shoulders and feet are more back in the underbalanced position and not there overbalanced, nearly falling over. So I would just assess yourself from the side first. So video yourself, see where the hips and the legs are. Progressions exercises for the one-arm frog stand or one-arm elbow lever. One-arm frog stand. So I take like the air baby position. I done a short on that the other day. I have got a longer tutorial on the air baby. One-arm elbow lever is relatively easy once you get used to the body position and just do a little bit of conditioning. The easiest way to do the one-arm elbow lever, probably the easiest one to show you now, is just to have, so externally rotate the hands in that position, and then I'm going to walk around taking the elbow towards the belly button and the belly button towards the elbows to try and sit on there. And then I'm going to tense the body and extend, open the chest and shoulders. And then I go fingertips and then fingertip, and then you can lift up from there. So just go to wherever you can get there. Make sure that you're moving the hip on top of the elbow and the elbows stand on top of the hand, and then extend up. And then you might need to hold on fingertips for time and just do sets of that quite frequently. So if you really want that skill, you'll get it quick. But if you've done a little practice of that daily, you'd probably have that in 2 weeks. That's a pretty easy one once you get the position right. Okay. I think I answered the handstand push-up one already. Any progression tips to learn how to balance the handstand on powerlets? Do exactly the same as I've shown on the floor. So the floor drills on the powerlets are exactly the same. Just go through back to wall, chest to wall, pulling from the wall. I've got a specific video on it where I show it on powerlets. So just search my name and then powerlets, and that will come up. So that does show you how to balance on it, but it's exactly the same drills. You practice your overbalance, your underbalance, back to wall, chest to wall. Guys, I'm going to rush through these now. I've got to have my dinner. Kids are screaming. I'm stuck in crow to tripod handstand transition. How to improve? Eccentrics is probably the best way to do that. So if you can do handstand down to crow, and just make sure that you're strong enough. If you're trying to come out to tripod handstand, do you mean headstand? I'm stuck in crow to tripod headstand transition. How to improve? So I would just go slow. Eccentrics is normally the best way to do that. So coming down, bending the arms a little bit, and then finding the crow position there. And then you can do the same with momentum to come back up. You can do the wall, so I could be here. You can do back to wall, chest to wall. The chest to wall one's a fun one because you can start to play with those transitions like that. I think my lower back is not stiff. What shall I do? If it's not stiff, that's a good thing. Do you mean, I think you might mean it's too stiff, your low back? Head to toe mobility, hang-ins amazing. Make sure you're hydrated enough. Head to toe flexibility, Jefferson curls, something that articulates the spine and get the spine moving is really good. It all depends on the rest of the body. You might find that the lower back is compensating if you're tight somewhere else. So normally if you're very tight in the upper body, in the upper back, the lower back will compensate and vice versa. So you sort of need to find where's the weak link. And normally just doing some full body mobility work will help. When I first was learning handstand push-up, I was always coming out of them underbalanced and falling out. Now I'm stronger, I'm getting up and over, balance and falling out. Any tips? So slowing down the top position. So that's really common. So when you start to go up with speed, think that when you're going up out of the handstand push-up, that you stop underbalanced. So if I come up from a handstand push-up, so if I'm at the bottom and I push up, if you stop here and take the momentum out and then push out to your handstand, you'll normally catch it. But if you carry on pushing, because we use a little bit of overbalance to help us to come out of the handstand push-up, you can easily just keep going. The momentum will take you over. So just backing off and pausing for a second before you come out the top will normally fix that. Okay, last question. I'm going to have to go, guys. I'm practicing the one-arm handstand on the floor for 100% of my training right now. I've had people tell me it would be better to do it on canes. What are your thoughts? Where can I find good canes? I wouldn't go canes. I'd go blocks, and then do some blocks, still 80% on the floor and 20% on blocks. You see, I've got canes there, but I would use blocks more. So, you know, the square handstand blocks or the round ones. Just have a play with them. So these ones like that, these are your valves your Valve hands. I've used them. They're years and years old, these ones. And there's two, I think he does 3 different sizes. You just need to find and just hold in 2 fingers or 3 fingers around the front. I go 2 fingers. So I would use those because there's a lot more options. You can do the block climbing, block walking. I wouldn't worry about canes. Canes are fun, but I wouldn't do that as a priority. I'd go floor 80%, 20% on those. It also gives your body a bit of a rest. Okay, I'm 15-year-old and I've been doing handstands since 6 months. I've been hitting plateaus. I want to break this plateau. Yeah, but you need to know like where your weak links are. Normally, people don't do enough against the wall. So I would make sure you're doing your underbalance and your overbalance drills. Search my YouTube and go balancing handstand. So any of the videos where I've gone through the back to wall and the chest to wall drills and do loads of repetitions, then become an expert at the back to wall overbalance drill and the chest to wall underbalance drill. Become an expert at that and your handstands will be amazing. Most people have gaps there, so you can use that as an assessment. Now I will be doing, guys, I've done a video where I assessed videos. So I got you guys to send videos in and then I assessed them and done a critique live. I'm going to do another one of those. So if you want me to critique your videos, because it's much easier for me to give feedback on what you're doing when I can actually see what you're doing. So I'll put a post up on my community post later today. I'll do a community post and you can just stick your links there with the videos and then I'll critique them. It is something that I offer anyway. So if you're interested in me doing that, I do that as a paid thing as well. Or if you want to do it for free, and I can use your videos on the YouTube video, then you can just put it in that link. I'll put your link in the community post and I'll put that up later today. Right, I'm going to sign off. Thanks, guys. Saturday seems to work well. I normally do these on a Friday, and I'll be changing the times, but I'll try and do these lives at least once a week. Happy handstands. I'll speak to you soon.